One I'm familiar with. How's that? Hello and thank you. I love the videos, Doc. Again, my pleasure. My question involves fertility post-TRT. I was on TRT for approximately 2 years and then stopped in an attempt to try for another child. I did not have any signs of low test prior to using TRT. It was just my preference. I have not used any supplementation now for 6 months. I recently checked my sperm levels using a home test and everything on that aspect looks good. Is it likely or unlikely that although my sperm levels are back to normal, I may not be fertile now? I do have one healthy child, so I know that my engine was working properly before. If I am not fertile, what does the process consist of through a doctor? Thank you again, I'm 36 years old. I'm not sure about this question because by definition, if your sperm levels are, well, I don't want to sidetrack here too much, but if they're back to normal, if your sperm levels are, well, let me stop and say that infertility is considered to be fewer than 20 million sperm per milliliter, and all it takes is one. So that's the definition of infertility. Okay, fewer than 20 million sperm per milliliter. So he mentions here normal. If that's what he's referring to, is he still technically fertile, or is his normal 150 million? At 36, it's probably not 150 million. It might be closer to, say, 80 million, half that, let's say. But if you have sperm, then by definition, you're fertile. Well, in a loose term. Again, I hate to keep breaking this down to stuff, on technicalities, but of course, when they do a semen analysis, they're going to look to see if the sperm are motile.
That's right.
And if their morphology, their shape is correct. So that plays into it too. And maybe that's what he's referring to, because I'm reading it and say, well, yeah, if you have sperm, then you're fertile. But yes, there is the
motility is an issue.
Yeah, they have to be properly functioning sperm, and maybe that's what he's asking. Again, I can't answer that, but just because you're on TRT doesn't mean that your sperm are going to be, they're usually fewer, but doesn't mean they're going to be not as motile. As a matter of fact, you could argue that, especially when you first start TRT, that they'll be bigger, stronger, faster. A typical sperm has a 74 to 76 day lifespan, and so if you started on T, to get sperm going, you have to have a release of testosterone from the Leydig cell, which is what creates the testosterone, right next to the Sertoli cell, which is what births, if you will, a sperm cell or a sperm. Without that local prime, you don't get this Sertoli cell functioning properly. But once the sperm has exited the Sertoli cell, then it can survive and actually thrive on exogenous testosterone. So that's why I say, in the beginning of a cycle, certainly you might actually have, sperm on steroids, literally, that could swim faster and make for better fertility. But again, the only thing I would suggest that you get a semen analysis in this case to find out if there is any issue with morphology and motility. Again, it says here that this gentleman checked his sperm levels.
I didn't know you could.
And everything was good. So, well, actually, you can. I'm not sure what this kit is, but you can get a microscope, and you can order a kit. A microscope that comes with a kit, and you have slides that show you what sort of a normal looks like, and you can. And that's how they do it. Actually, it's mechanized now, I'm sure, in many places, but the old-fashioned way of doing it is you put it under a slide and you count and you see which ones are moving and which ones aren't, and you can look at the shape and so on. And I just want to make sure I answer this gentleman's question. It sounds like he is fertile, but the process of checking again to make sure, if this home kit only shows that you have sperm but you don't know if they're the right shape and if they're motile, then the process is to go to a doctor that will write a requisition for a semen analysis, and in the laboratory they'll do what I just said, which is to take a peek and either under a microscope, manually, if you will, with a human involved, or now they can do it mechanically, and just do a count and see what the quality of the sperm is.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. That answers his question.
Thanks, Doc. Go, Doc.
This one starts, is there a way to have DHT prescribed in the U.S.? As far as I know, no. Or preferably products such as MasteronProviron. Also no. Both of these products provide far better results combined with a low dosage of testosterone in terms of both libido, well-being, and anti-estrogenic effects. They also eliminate the need for typical anti-estrogens such as Arimidex and Nolvadex, etc. I've been taking Test-Sip 150 milligrams per week and 150 to 250 milligrams per week of Masteron propionate for almost 5 years straight, and there's no comparison to get alone with an anti-estrogen. I've never experienced any side effects above that of TRT therapy alone after adding the Masteron, and adding it changed everything for the better almost instantly. By week 3, my energy and well-being had recovered completely. My libido increased 100%. My gyno all but disappeared completely, and all the water retention I had accumulated on just TRT alone, combined with Arimidex, had completely disappeared. I suffer no problems from Masteron. Prostate is healthy. Hairline has never receded. Before adding Masteron, it sounds like a commercial for Masteron.
I know, he's really likes it.
I know, I'm teasing. But yeah, it sounds like it did wonders for him. Before adding Masteron, I would experience some highs and lows of mood, seemed about 50-50, and since adding Masteron, I rarely ever experienced any lows whatsoever. I can't say enough about this product, so I hope someone can do some research and find a way to allow Masteron to be an approved medication in the U.S.
Can you do that, Doc?
No. Good luck with that.
The answer is no.
I wouldn't even know where to begin is the honest answer. It's a truly amazing product, and I speak for many people going the same route. Proviron produces similar effects, but not nearly as positive or pronounced. Other disadvantage is Proviron is an oral, and I feel it's healthier to avoid orals when possible. Do you think we will ever see Masteron available in the U.S., and would it be possible for a compounding pharmacy to produce it? Thanks for your time, John Anderson. Okay, I'm trying to mark a few things that I want to address. First of all, if you're doing testosterone in the standard way we do it here in the U.S. anyway, and you're suffering from water retention, then my first inclination would be to assume that it's not being done correctly, because the water weight is from excess estrogen. So maybe in this case, I know he mentioned that he was taking Arimidex, but maybe it wasn't enough. I mean, that's all I can think of right off the bat. I've never had an issue, and I'm an accountant before I was a doctor, so I'm conservative and I'm honest. I mean, I'm not, without a doubt, I've never had a problem, dealing with excess water by reeling in the estrogen or making it optimum. So that's and again, I just want to make sure we're not making assumptions here that are misleading. So I'm not sure, but my guess is that it just wasn't done properly. I'm not saying that anything he's saying here is untrue. He probably is getting results, and again, this goes back to the individual nature of therapy. I mean, this is what makes medicine a lot of fun for me, and for some people on the other side of the table too, is that it's not all the same, and some people have better or different results with different products. However, Masteron would be considered contraband here in the U.S. It is not legal. Ditto for Proviron. So no, a compounding pharmacy cannot make anything that's not FDA approved here in the U.S. You get in trouble. And I know it's kind of misleading because with the internet, people find stuff all the time, and somehow there are companies. I'm not sure if they're U.S., but they're getting stuff through the border, peptides particularly, because they're saying it's for research purposes, and I don't know if that's being, if the FDA or whomever is responsible for direct enforcement of that is just looking the other way, or they're just outmanned, or I always joke, with regard to growth hormone. It's the only FDA-approved drug that's not approved for off-label use. And yet there's plenty of places you can go to where a doctor will prescribe growth hormone. I am not one of them, because it is definitely, and you can look at the FDA website, it is definitely illegal to do so. As of 2011 February, they list the 7 conditions for which you can prescribe it, and they even go so far as to say on top of saying you can only prescribe it for these 7, you cannot prescribe it for anti-aging, cosmetic, or bodybuilding purposes. But what these peptide companies are doing, I think, is they're labeling it as research. Oh, but I was going to joke that just because you see it being prescribed doesn't mean it's legal. Just like you see guys on the 405, buzzing down the highway at 90 drinking a 6-pack, right? It's totally legal, but there's just not enough enforcement out there. I'm not suggesting there should be, by the way. Again, I'm on record as being a registered libertarian. The law is a law. As far as some of these other things, the hairline receding, that's something that's genetic. It's either in your genes or not, and the dihydrotestosterone can either accelerate the hair loss. A receding hairline, I think of when he talks about receding, I think of this. Mm-hmm. This is still to this day thought of to be generated by your mother's father. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's either in your genes or not, and whether you have DHT in excess or not, it doesn't really play into this. Male pattern baldness, on the other hand, is also definitely genetic, but can be accelerated for sure with excess levels of DHT. And then just general hair loss, unless you're really, really a rare individual, meaning as you grow older, you just all around start to thin as a matter of not just genes, but again, DHT exposure. So just because he didn't have any receding hairline doesn't mean it's necessary because, oh, wow. Unless he's saying, oh, I had some recession with the testosterone, but I'm not having it with the Masteron, and that gets kind of dicey because maybe the timing. Again, this is and I'm not picking on this at all. I just want to be clear. This is an N of 1. Mm-hmm. There's a study of one person, and we don't know if it's because of things that just happen to correlate timing-wise or whatever. Yeah. So I just got to be careful. I want to answer the question, but I also want to, keep everybody else on the same page in terms of some relevant information. Do I ever see it being available, Masteron? Again, a compounding pharmacy can't do it by law. I have no idea if it'll be considered legal. We have something on our formulary called halotestin, which to me is nuts. I don't know anybody who takes halotestin anymore and why you would want to. It's really hard on the liver. Makes people psychotic, homicidal, and yet it's allowed, as opposed to some of these other drugs. Now, Anavar and Nandrolone are both not contraband. They're legal in the United States for certain indications. I prescribe it, for wasting disorders, which is what it's supposed to be for, obviously, and thank God we have it. But again, halotestin, I don't know why that's on there. So my point is, why we would have Masteron on or off, or what the rationale behind it is, probably more of a political thing. And I don't mean to be cynical. It's just, somebody's going to have to want it for a good medical reason, and there'll have to be a financial reason. This is just my experience in 53 years. There'll have to be a financial gain had to push it through the proper channels to make it legal. Despite that, obviously there's at least one person who believes that it's definitely helping. And, again, I'm sorry that these things aren't available. I think that did I miss anything?
No,
with that question?
Pretty much it.
Okay.
He was hoping it would become, but I guess he'll have to run for Congress.
No way, man. No.
All right, thank you, Doc.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doc.